Hello everyone, my name is Tiar Simanjuntak. I'm from Yayasan Sulu, Jakarta. And for the KOLITA 18 conference, the topic that I'm going to talk about is finding the current language vitality of Mamuju. So why did I have to survey this language? Well, the main reason for doing this is that the information of the language vitality of Mamuju will help stakeholders plan for future language development in Mamuju, since language vitality is the foundation of a language program. Well, besides language vitality, I also looked for the language use and the language attitude of the speakers of this language. I will divide my presentation into 4 sections. The first one is introduction, and then the second one is the methodology. The third one is the analysis, and then the fourth one is the conclusion. Okay, let's talk about the first part of the presentation, and that is the introduction. And in the introduction, I'd like to talk first about the geographical location. Mamuju is a language that is spoken by the people of Mamuju in West Sulawesi. And actually the word Mamuju is also used for the name of the regency there. There are 5 regencies in West Sulawesi. They are Poliwali Mandar, Mamasa, Majene, Pasangkayu, and Mamuju. West Sulawesi used to be part of South Sulawesi in the past. The area of the province is 16,796.19 kilometers square. Kabupaten Mamuju is basically mountainous, except for the coastal plain, which can be from 5 to 20 kilometers wide. And most of the people live on the coastal plain. The speakers presumably originated from the areas of Mamuju City and Mamuju regions in West Sulawesi. They spread over to the neighboring islands of Karampuang, Balabalakang, and their new homelands in Balikpapan and other places in Kalimantan. And now we are going to talk about the language classification of Mamuju. As an Austronesian language, Ethnologue classified Mamuju as a Malayo-Polynesian, South Sulawesi, and northern part. There are 4 alternate names of Mamuju. The first one is Mamuju, Mamujush, Mamuju, and Uday. And there are a list of dialects of Mamuju which are well known as Sumare Rangas, Padang, Sinyonyoi, and Mamuju. Now we come to the number of the speakers of Mamuju. In the ethnologue as well, it is stated that there are around 60,000 speakers of Mamuju. And the last part of the introduction that I'm going to talk about is the expanded graded intergenerational disruption scale, or IGITS level of Mamuju. The simple meaning of IGITS level is just like the vitality level of a language. This is a system which is used by SIL International and other organizations to see the vitality of a language from the way it is transferred from the parent generation to the children generation. The expanded graded intergenerational disruption scale, or IGITS level of Mamuju, is 6B, meaning that some parents are not transmitting the heritage language to their children. So that is the IGITS level of Mamuju, 6B. And then we surveyed to find out the current vitality of Mamuju, the IGITS level. Okay, in the next slide, I'm going to show you the language map of Mamuju from SIL International and Wikipedia. So as you see here, Mamuju lies in the coastal area of West Sulawesi province. And in the top left corner is a map of Sulawesi Island, and the one that is in the red bracket is the area where we talk about Mamuju. And 4 stars here symbolizing the places that we surveyed. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the trip itself. So the first one is about the survey team. The survey team consisted of Sulu survey team, and we were helped by the local people there in Mamuju. And then we surveyed for 5 days, and we did it in May 2019. And then for survey location, we surveyed 4 locations or 4 areas based on the suggestions of the local partners, considering 2 important factors. The first one is the highly populated by indigenous Mamuju people, an equal selection of communities inside and outside the city territory. So we selected 4 locations. The first one, Rimuku and Timbu. Rimuku and Timbu are located inside Mamuju city, while Babanga and Karampuang Island are rural areas located outside the city. If you look at the map before, or I'm going to show you later in the next slide, another picture of the map of Mamuju, you'll see that Karampuang Island is a small island located near the city of Mamuju. Again, the 4 locations that we surveyed, number 1 is Rimuku, and then number 2 is Timbu. They are all located inside the city of Mamuju. And then the third one is Babanga and Karampuang Island. Now let's come to the next part of my presentation, and it is about the methodology or the methods. So first, I'd like to talk about the group interviews or community-based language discussions. This is the first method that we used. Group interviews or community-based language discussions focused on gathering data for language vitality, language use, and language attitude. Language spoken by Mamuju communities was assessed by using practical participatory approach with metadata written with all languages spoken by the communities, and then followed up by selecting which languages communities speak based on frequency and which languages were widely understood based on the level of comprehension. The survey team measured language vitality with the help of participatory tools in a book that is called A Guide for Planning the Future of Our Language, which is shortened into GPFOL. The activity was conducted in the form of community-based language discussions. The tools were 5 diagnostic statements associated with the spoken by all children, and then the sustainable language use, the mountain metaphor, and then the key questions from sociolinguistic questionnaire and observations. The mountain metaphor is an illustration of a language situation depicting all languages around the world that are competing to reach the highest or best level of their vitality, just like climbing to the top of the mountain. Language use and language attitude were measured by using a bilingualism diagram, observations, and 4 key questions from a sociolinguistic questionnaire, emphasizing domains of language people use in their daily life, whether parents teach the language to their children, languages people use at home, and languages people use for chatting with their friends. The individual sociolinguistic questionnaire focused on the following topics: language use, language attitudes, and diglossia. There were 14 individual questionnaires which were given right after the community-based language discussions. In Rimuku, there were 4 persons, 1 female and 3 males, who were interviewed. In Timbu, there were 4 persons, 2 females and 2 males. In Babanga, there were 2 persons, 1 female and 1 male, while in the last place in Karampuang, there were 4 persons, 2 females and 2 males. The persons who were interviewed were of different age groups: children ranging from 4 up to 12 years old, teenagers 13 up to 19 years old, young people 20 up to 30 years old, as long as they are single or not married, and then parents from 25 until 50 years old, grandparents 50 up to 69 years old and have grandchildren, and then great grandparents above 70 years old and have at least one great grandchild. Okay, now let's come to the third part of my presentation, that is the analysis. In the analysis, I'm going to talk about 4 points. The first one is the IGITS level of Mamuju, the language people usually use in daily life. And then third is if parents teach Mamuju to their children. And then the fourth is languages people can speak or understand. Okay, now let's see number one. The IGITS level of Mamuju. This is the results of the group interview resulting from the 5 diagnostic statements for spoken by all children from GPFOL that indicates the IGITS level of Mamuju is at level 6B with several segments or communities in the language group still holding at 6A. So you can see here in Rimuku it is 6B, Babanga 6B, while Timbu and Karampuang, they are at 6A. Now the language people usually use in daily life. The Mamuju possess good language attitude towards their own language. Out of 14 Mamuju respondents, for daily use, 12 persons speak Mamuju and only 2 persons speak a mixture of Indonesian and Mamuju. So you see in Rimuku and Timbu, both have one respondent saying that they speak Indonesian and Mamuju. And then the third part is if parents teach Mamuju to their children. For the domain at home, 11 persons speak Mamuju, 1 person speaks Indonesian, and 2 persons speak mixed and Mamuju and Indonesian. So you see here that in Rimuku, 2 respondents say yes, that the parents teach Mamuju to their children, and then 2 said no. While at the last 3 places, Timbu, Babang, and Karampuang, all of them say yes. And then the last part is languages people can speak or understand. So from the chart, you see that there are 6 languages that people can speak or can understand: Mamuju, Indonesian, Mandar, Makassar, Bugis, and Arabic. But from the 4 places of the survey locations, Rimuku and Timbu, they put number 1 for Indonesian. And then Babanga and Karampuang, they put Mamuju as the first language. And now it brings us to the last part of my presentation, that is the conclusion. This is my conclusion. The IGITS level of Mamuju is at 6B, meaning that not all parents transfer the language to the children, with several segments or communities in the language group still holding at 6A. If it is 6A, then all the parents transfer the language to the younger generation or to the children. And then before I close my presentation, I have some pictures to share. This is bilingualism diagram where we discussed 3 main languages and we classified which generation speak what language. We talk about Indonesian, Mamuju, and Mandar. And then this is the chart for the 5 diagnostic statements of spoken by all children. And this is the participatory approach that you can see here that the people are discussing to prioritize what language that they can understand or they can speak. And then this is the picture of the people or the speakers of Mamuju in Karampuang Island. Okay, thank you very much. For final say, I could say that let's try and use GPFOL with some participatory tools in it that can help you find the vitality of the language community that you're going to research or observe. You can contact me at this number. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy my presentation.